It's okay.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وبعد. We begin by praising God, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Him to have infinite amount of peace and blessings upon the final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon him, his companions, his family, and all of those who follow him until the last day. And I ask Allah to include each and every one of us amongst those who follow the final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam until our last day. Allahumma ameen. Today, inshallah, I'd like to talk to you about a topic in Arabic which we call riba. Riba is basically what's defined as a form of backbiting that can either be backbiting or gossip. It's defined as to say something about someone in their absence that the person would not like. So basically saying something when the person is not present and that they would dislike. And riba also can be any gesture that is meant to demean someone, such as rolling your eyes, such as mocking someone when their attention is diverted, maybe writing negatively about someone, or anything similar. Nowadays, we've kind of invented even new ways of doing riba, backbiting. Some of those could be, for example, texting, or posting online on social media about someone. It could be creating online videos through YouTube or TikTok, Instagram, or other forms of media. Just because something goes away in a few seconds doesn't mean you didn't say it, right? We think sometimes that we can fake out God, but in fact, everything's being recorded. All of that stuff is out. Once out there, then it's never, even though it may be gone after a few seconds from the humans, other people, but in the eyes of God, it's always going to be present. We also have to be careful about backbiting or gossip. If you don't do it extensively, it can be a form of bullying. And this happens a lot with people, especially young people online, when it's important to remember that this type of behavior is considered sinful. In our religion, we consider this sinful behavior when you talk bad about someone without them knowing or without their presence. We also have to understand that we're actually hurting someone else. We're hurting another person when we backbite or when we gossip. In Surah Al-Hujurat, which is the 49th chapter of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in verse number 12, "Do not speak badly about people behind their backs. Would any of you like to eat the flesh of your dead brother? No, you would hate it." The Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, he said once to his companion, he said, "Do you know what the ghiba is? Do you know what ghiba is?" And they responded, Allah and His Messenger, they know best. And then he said, "It's to talk about your brother in a way that he would not like." To talk about your brother in a way that he would not like. And one of the companions asked him, "Well, what if I say something about my brother that's true?" And he said, "If it's true, you have committed ghiba. And if it's false, you have slandered him." Both, of course, are sinful behaviors. The worst form of backbiting is to praise yourself indirectly by demeaning someone else. In other words, we gossip about someone else in order to make ourselves look good or feel good in comparison to whoever we are talking about. Another destructive form of this habit is to pretend to have good intentions towards someone while we're actually trying to degrade them in a way and expose them while they're not there. For example, someone might say, "Did you know so-and-so talks back to her parents and argues with them every day? Let's pray to God that Allah guides her." So, in fact, you're saying something negative about that person, but you're hiding it in a form of making a prayer for them. Of course you can pray for them. Why don't you pray for them silently instead of exposing the faults that they have? That would often be better than exposing their faults and then trying to cover it up by saying something good about them. When we hide this form of backbiting with just righteous things or righteous prayers, it doesn't change the nature of it. It's also dangerous to gossip about a group of people, since the punishment actually may be multiplied. Not only are you saying something bad about one person, you're saying it about multiple people. So the sin could be multiplied there. In addition, the person who listens to someone else gossiping also shares in that sin. The person that is listening to gossip also shares in that sin because they're accepting this act implicitly through their silence. So what can we do if we're caught in a conversation where someone is backbiting or they're gossiping and that's taking place? If we're listening to a conversation and gossip comes up, we can avoid sharing in the sin by responding with the following actions. Number one, what you can do is stop the backbiting immediately in its tracks by speaking up in defense of the person that's being wronged or the person that's being talked about. In studies in psychology, they have shown that there's one phrase that can stop a gossiper or a backbiter dead in their tracks. When someone is trying to involve you in a negative conversation about another person, the one phrase that you can say that studies have shown kind of stops the person from speaking back is, "Why are you telling me this? Why are you telling me this?" Psychologists believe that this phrase is effective for several reasons. First, the question itself, it dispels any self-serving motive from the gossiper. And second, it forces the gossiper to face the fact that you're uninterested in being involved. It doesn't show that you're interested, you want to keep talking about it. You want to keep saying, okay, let's talk more about this. But you ask, why are you telling me this? Then the person, it goes back to them, like, maybe you shouldn't be saying this. Number two, if it's impossible for you to speak up, then you can try to change the subject. When the person starts speaking negatively about somebody else, you can say, hey, let's talk about this other thing. Did you know this happened here? Or this happened there? Or did you hear about this idea? Number three, if you're unable to even change the subject to redirect that conversation, then you can just get up and go. You can say, I'll look at the time, I have something to do, or I have to go now. You can just excuse yourself and leave instead of sharing in the sinful behavior. If you can't speak up about it, if you can't defend the person, if you can't change the subject, then it is your choice to listen or leave. Number four, if it's still not possible, then you have to condemn the backbiting or the gossip within your hearts. Because sometimes, maybe you're on a plane, you're on a long journey, you're in a car with somebody, you just can't get out. You can't stop the car and leave, you can't stop the plane and get out. You're just there, you have to listen. So you have to at least try to do all those other things, changing the subject, maybe getting up and going. If you can't do any of this, then you should hate this conversation within your heart. You shouldn't go ahead and egg the person on and say, oh, did you know that they also do this, they also do that? Instead of continuing the conversation, engaging with them, just hate it within your heart. And if you have to listen, then listen. Now, as you can see, none of these options includes taking part in the backbiting itself. Of course, that would be sinful, and we wouldn't want to do that. That would obviously be sinful, and you'd be taking part in the backbiting, so the sin would come back onto you as well. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever defends the reputation of their brother or their sister, God will defend them from the hellfire on the day of judgment. This was recorded in the book of Exodus. So why do we engage in backbiting? Why do we engage in gossip? There's many reasons why we gossip. We may gossip because maybe we have nothing better to do. Sometimes we do it to pass the time. Sometimes we do it to feel better about ourselves or to attach ourselves to the other person that we're gossiping with, so that we can have some type of strange connection to the person that we're gossiping with. Psychologists have also studied this, and they've said that there's various aspects of gossip and backbiting. And they've discovered that the main reason why we do it is to build social bonds with others, to build some type of social bond with others. The dislikes that are shared between groups of people are actually more powerful in human bonding than shared likes and interests. So the dislike of someone else is actually more of a bonding experience than it is of liking somebody else or sharing some common interest. And when people engage in gossip or in slander and backbiting, they feel a shared sense of humor. They feel a shared sense of mutual interest. And when we gossip or when we talk bad about other people, we move the focus away from us, from our own selves, from looking at our own faults, from our own problems, our negative traits, our weaknesses, and we shift that focus towards other people. So instead of looking back and reflecting on what we need to change, what we need to work on, the weaknesses that we have, we look at other people and say, look at that person. They have so many problems. Look at this other person. They do this sin, or they do this other thing. Instead of looking at ourselves, we focus on the other person. It's easier to talk about someone else's pain, or someone else's struggles, or someone else's issues, than it is to focus on our own pain, on our own issues, our own sins and struggles. And sometimes it actually makes us feel better to talk about it, about other people, and how they're broken, and how they're messed up, and how damaged they are, than it is to talk about ourselves. Because then we might have to realize that, hey, maybe we're kind of broken too. Maybe we have problems, we have some issues. And then you have to challenge yourself to make yourself feel better. There is an adage in Islam that states to love for your brother what you love for yourself. To love for your brother what you love for yourself. It means that we should treat others the way that we would like to be treated. And if we reflect on this value, then we see that it will make it difficult for us to talk bad about others because we wouldn't want them to be speaking bad about us. Because when we speak negatively about someone else, it comes back on us. So we shouldn't speak negatively about other people as well. And we have to understand this, the riba, the backbiting and gossip, whether it's through either of these forms, whether it's through gossip or backbiting, it's far from harmless. It's important to remember that when we gossip, we're actually hurting someone else. We're hurting the person, whether directly or indirectly. And a famous statement that has been attributed to Eleanor Roosevelt, she said that great minds, they discuss ideas. Great minds discuss ideas. And average minds, they discuss events. And she said small minds discuss people. Small minds discuss people. I think it's important for us to shift our conversations, whether those are in person, whether those are over the phone, whether they're over text, whether they're online, however we do them, and make sure we're discussing things that are more important than just trivial topics. Did you see how bad that person looked today? Did you see what they just did? These are trivial things. They're not important. And once we make this type of shift, inshallah, it will help us in having healthier relationships, in being more productive, in improving our own selves, and of course, our own self-worth will become better. Inshallah, we'll become happier. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. استغفر الله وأتوب إليه. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. How can we have these constructive and more powerful conversations? How can we have a more powerful form of speech? While preparing for today's sermon, I listened to a talk on communication and how to communicate effectively. And the speaker stated 4 points, which really resonated with me. And I'd like to talk about those 4 points today, inshallah. And then we'll conclude. So to share those 4 points in conclusion, we gave 4 points to consider while having these types of conversations. And this can be true for conversations whether they're in person or online. And so these are just some practical steps that we can take, each of us can take in order to move our conversations, to steer away from backbiting and steer them away from gossip. Number one, the first point that he made was honesty. Being truthful in what we say. If we're going to be truthful in what we say, it will automatically shut the door towards gossip, slander, backbiting, all of these things. Because we're going to realize, if I want to be truthful, I want to be honest, I'm not going to go out and say all these other things. Number two, being authentic, being genuine about ourselves, standing in our own truth. If you're being authentic, if you're being sincere, then you're going to realize, I don't want these words said about me, so I'm not going to say them about someone else as well. Number three, integrity. Being people that do what we say, so that others will trust us for our words. Right? If you have integrity, if you're known as the person with integrity, others will trust you with their words. And they'll know that you won't go and backbite them. So that's an important aspect. Number four is love. And what we talked about earlier, loving for our brothers and our sisters, what we love for ourselves. Wishing people, genuinely wishing them well, and wanting for them what we want for ourselves. If we do truly love a person, we would never backbite. We would never gossip about them, because we know that it would truly hurt someone. And if we love someone, we would never want to hurt. As a side note, of course, absolute honesty, the first point, may not be always what we want. You may not want to say something that's brutally honest. Someone asks you, how do I look? Man, you look really ugly. Obviously, that's that's not something you want to say. It's probably never a good idea to say things like that. But when it's tempered with love, honesty can be a great way to speak. Finally, when we're really wishing someone well, we will never speak negatively about them. When we're really wishing somebody well, we will never speak negatively about them. It becomes really difficult if we truly wish well for someone to also speak negatively about them at the same time. This goes back to what we discussed earlier about loving for others what we love for ourselves. Oh Allah, we ask you to steer our conversations away from people, away from backbiting, and help us to only speak words that you love. Oh Allah, we ask you to forgive our sins and help us in staying on the right path. Oh Allah, we ask you to purify our hearts, to be gentle with us and to pardon us. Oh Allah, we ask you to ease the burden of those who are experiencing difficulty, who are experiencing devastation, and give them the strength and courage to overcome their challenges. Allah, uplift the oppression over our brothers and our sisters, and give them the freedom from their oppressors. Allah, have mercy upon those who have passed away. Accept them as martyrs and bring the ease to their loved ones. Oh Allah, we ask you to heal those who are injured and those who are sick. And oh Allah, we ask you to accept from us our good deeds and to provide for us a resting place in the highest levels of Jumu'ah. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله